Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Srini here. And guys, this has been a long break for me, so sorry for that. So I'm back, and this is a video on Postman tool, right? So this is the tool which we use for API automation testing, right? So we are going to have a detailed session today on Postman, and I hope this video will be very useful for you all to practice API testing as well as to prepare for the interviews. So let's get started. So let's look at what are the going to be key takeaways from this particular video. So anyone who is new to Postman or new to API automation testing, for rest assured, they will be able to get all of these benefits from this particular video. You will be able to understand what is Postman, right? And what is Postman tool, how to install it, what are the different features of Postman. We are going to see that practically. And I'm going to explain you two terminologies, which is very much important for everyone to be aware of because it's going to be asked in the interview. What are safe methods and what are idempotent methods in rest assured? What is resource URL, base URL, resource? These different terminologies have got some meaning, so we have to understand that. And then lastly, we're going to see what are the different types of parameters. So forgive me guys if my voice is not proper because I'm having cold, so I'll not be able to be more audible enough. So let's get started. So the first thing is that what is Postman, right? So Postman is a testing tool which is used for API automation testing. Now there are a lot of different tools available in the market today, like SOAP UI, REST client, etc. So these tools basically provide you a kind of a UI interface where you can just provide the endpoint URL, you can provide the input payload, right? And it will be able to process the response for you and give you the response back. So the user is nothing but the client. The client is giving the request in the form of a payload, right? The request payload. They are providing a endpoint URL which is going to hit the exact API, right? And that API which has got the logic will execute that request. If that request is found to be a proper request with proper data and without any, parameters missing, then it will be able to process it. And if it's having some authentication, of course, it will check for the authentication if it's a valid request or not, or a valid user or not. If everything is fine, you are going to get the response back with your requested resource, right? So whatever the client is requesting from the server is nothing but going to be a resource, right? The server will return the resource back if the user is found to be authenticated. So that's what we're going to see. So what is a Postman tool? Let's just go into how it looks like. So for first thing, for basically downloading Postman, right? You have to go to Google and just say Postman tool download for Windows, right? So I'm using 64-bit operating system, so you can just click on this download Postman app, and you will be able to see that this particular option is visible, right? Just select the whatever operating system type you have. So I already have it, but you can just select the operating system based on the type, 32-bit or 64-bit. So this is how it looks like, right? So I have already opened it. So let me just show you how it looks like. So this is how Postman looks like, right? So there are different options. So I'm going to explain you all the features of Postman here. So that's the next point. So once you have basically downloaded this particular tool, right, and you have installed it as well, so you would be able to see like this once it opens up. So there are different features of Postman. So let's get into that one by one. So let's come on to the left hand side. On the left hand side, you could see there are different options here: new tab, Postman window, new runner window, import, etc. Right? So mostly you would see these options are also similar to what is mentioned below here. So no need to worry about if you cannot understand these options from the file tab. You can directly come to the below section here. So here, if you expand this new drop down menu, there are options of new request, new collection, new environment, documentation, mock server, and monitor. So we aren't going to go much into details of the advanced part for now. So let's look into what is new request, collection, environment, right? So new request means that you want to hit the API, a particular API. So you want to hit it, right? So you are going to give her, when I click on the new request, it is giving me this kind of a window. So I have to basically give it a name. So I'm going to give it a name like get test. So get regress call. Okay. I'm just going to give a name like this. So I'm going to do a get call. That is why I'm giving a get name in the start of the request name. Just come below and you can see that there are options given that do you want to add it as a part of an existing collection or not. So what is collection here? Collection is nothing but a collection of different requests. So one particular request which you are going to hit for the API is called a request, right? If you're having more than one request, we are going to say it's like a collection of requests. So we can save it to a collection. A collection is something what you can say it's like a folder, right? So in that particular folder, you're going to save all of your API requests. So I'm going to save it to a new collection. So I'm going to say plus create collection. So I'm going to give a name as regress get calls, right? So I've just given a name like this. So here regress means the name of the API. So if you see on the left hand side, I'll just show you. The regress.in is the dummy URL which I'm going to use for showing this small demonstration. Of course, we are going to look at the real-time APIs like Jira, Twitter, Facebook. So we are going to take one of them and we are going to look into details of how to create an automation framework using rest assured, and we are going to look at one of the API in detail. But for the demonstration purpose of Postman, just so that you are able to understand it properly, I'm using this regress dummy API. So let's click on the check bar, right? And now you're having this particular option. So now I'm going to save it to regress get calls collection. So you can see that it has added my request to this particular collection. And if I expand it, it is having this get request call dummy, right? So let's now look at the right hand side part. Now we have looked at the left hand side part, how to create a request and how to create a collection. Let's come on to the right hand side part. So here you're having a drop down. So these are the different options you're having. These are called the different HTTP methods. So you're having get, post, put, patch, delete, right? So let's look into these 5 options, which are the main ones we are going to work with when we are working with any API request, right? So get means that we are requesting for a resource to be fetched from the server. So as the name suggests here, get means simply retrieve the state of the resource. Don't do any modification on that particular resource. So it's just retrieving the state of the resource. That is why we also call a get method as a safe method. So I'll go to the slide here. So what is a safe method? Safe methods are those methods that do not update or delete a resource on the server. Those methods are called safe methods. So since get is just retrieving the information without doing any modification, so I'm covering this slide along with that Postman demonstration. So get is that's why called as a safe method. It doesn't modify anything on the resource, right? So it's called as a safe method. Similarly, head is just going to retrieve the head information of the API. So that is also considered to be as a safe method. Right, so let's get back. So next method is a post method. So post, the name suggests itself that post something, right? When you're posting a tweet, when you're posting a status on Facebook, etc., what does it indicate? You're trying to create something on the server, right? It's not existing, but you're trying to create it. That is the meaning of post. It is going to create or post some information on the server, and such information gets basically created at the server side. So that's what we call as a resource. So status being posted will become like a resource. It's going to be saved in the server. For that particular user, a status was being posted. So that's considered as a post or a resource, right? So in future, if I would wish to retrieve a particular resource or the status, I can get it through get call because it's already present on the server. So I just have to provide the paths to that particular resource, right? So that is how we are going to get the data. So what is the resource and what is this endpoint URL, etc., right? See, the URL what we are going to give here, the basic URL, right? The URL to basically get a resource that we're going to put it here. That is called as an endpoint URL. So let's take an example. So this particular slide will make us understand what is a base URL, what is a resource, what is a resource URL, that all you will be able to get it clarified using this particular slide. So if I just give this particular URL right here, this means it's called as a base URL. Like example, facebook.com, right? If you just write https www.facebook.com, that's it. So till here becomes your base URL. Now, after that, whatever you're going to put is going to be the path for your resource. So let's say that there is this dummy API, right? And I wish to access a particular resource that is present at this particular path, the one which I'm highlighting here, slash API slash users, where page is equal to 2. So whatever users are present in this dummy API belonging to the page 2 would get displayed in the response. That is the meaning of this particular get call, right? So this is the base URL. Let me once again stress it on the importance of it. This is the base URL, right? This is the relative URL, or nothing but we are calling it as a resource, right? We're calling it as a resource to access to a particular resource on the server. This is the resource path for it, right? And then finally, once you combine these two together, what gets formed is called as a URI. URI stands for Uniform Resource Identifier, right? So this is what we call as a URI. URI stands for Uniform Resource Identifier, and this is nothing but a combination of your base URL and resource. And we also sometimes call it as a resource URL. That means to reach out to a particular resource, you would need to have a complete URL, and that is nothing but the combination of the two, right? So now I hope this particular concepts are clear. What is a base URL? What is a resource? What is a URI, right? So let's get back to Postman. So I've given this endpoint URL here, and I have got these different HTTP methods here, right? So post is basically going to create the data at the server side. Like as I given an example of creating a tweet or creating a status update from a Facebook, right? That is going to be considered as a post. What is put here? Put and post are going to be kind of similar. So we have to understand the difference between the two. And this is again another important interview question. Put basically would be nothing but a update on an existing resource. So if you're already having, let's say, a status posted on facebook.com, if you wish to edit the post, so there is an option which you can see on the website to edit the post, right? So if you click on that, basically they are nothing but doing a put operation here, because already that status is present on the server. The server would be requested for a status update on that particular status. So basically the background operation is going to be put whenever a user tries to do edit the post, because the source is already existing on the server. Let's say a client or a user wasn't aware if a resource is existing or not. They simply used a post call, a put call, and they have given some data in the body. Here you will be giving some data in the body, like what exact status you want to post, right? So if that particular status wasn't available on the server, but you have used put, that means it will create the resource on the server. So sometimes if the resource doesn't exist on the server, put will also act like a post, because you are trying to update something, but that is not available on the server. So it will create it first and it will save it. If again you use the same put call with a similar endpoint URL, it's going to update that particular resource now, because now that resource is already available on the server. That is the meaning of put. What is patch? Patch means partial modification. So if a resource is having multiple parameters, let's say name, ID, address, etc., but you wish to update only name, not the remaining information, so then it's called as a partial update of the information on this resource, right? You're not updating the complete payload data, the complete body. You're not updating the complete body here. So here you will be having the complete body in the form of a JSON. So if we don't update the complete body, that we are calling it as a put. So we will see that with examples in future videos. So don't worry about it for now. What is delete? As the name suggests, if you are giving some endpoint URL for a particular resource, let's say there is a unique resource I want to delete. So here it's page equal to 2. Let's say, for example, this would have been user ID equal to 2. So if I delete a resource like whose ID belongs to this user ID equal to 2, then once this action is done, then this particular resource will be deleted from the server. And again, if you try to do the same call, you are not going to get the resource, right? Because it's already deleted. So that is the meaning of delete. It will basically delete the resource from the server, right? So these are the 5 methods we have seen the description so far. Now let's come into the different sections here. Okay, so this is what we call as an endpoint URL section, and here we give the complete endpoint URL. Now here you can see there are options of sending or saving. So let's say that you are making some changes to the endpoint URL, or you're making some changes to body or headers or these sections, right? Then if you want to just keep your collection in sync with whatever changes you have made, then you just have to click on save. See, it rotates and then it shows now that it's sync. So now your API, whatever data you have given in the request or the collection, is in sync, and this particular orange color would be shown. That shows that your request is in sync, right? So let's take an example. So I don't want to go into deep into Postman in this particular lecture. So what we will do is that we will take an example of a get call, right? I'll show you example of a get call where I'm going to retrieve all the users whose information is present in page equal to 2. So here we don't require any body at all, neither do we require any header as such. So it's completely optional to give any header, and sometimes authorization may be required, sometimes it is not required. So we will look into that in detail later. So for now you just assume that there is no authentication required because it's a dummy call, it's a dummy API. So let's click on send. So right, we have hit the API, and now you can see that we have got the response. It has given the response in the form of a response payload, and this looks into this kind of a representation. It starts with the curly brace and it ends with the curly brace if I go to the extreme bottom here. And there are a lot of different data as a part of this particular payload, right? Response payload. So this is what we call it as a JSON. This is a JSON response. So let me save it to Notepad++, right? So let me open a Notepad++, right? So I'm going to click on new and I'm going to put it here, right? So what happens here? So let's just understand here what exactly happens, right? So this is the entire JSON format. This is how it starts with. It starts with the curly brace. It is having some attributes here. So it's having a page attribute. It is having per page how many data it has to show, which is 6 here. Totally how many number of entries are there. So totally there are 12 entries. Total number of pages were 2. So of that you have tried to get the data of the second page. It's all dummy data, but it's there. Still some data is there in the server so that you can get the data retrieved from the server, right, of the page equal to 2. So this is the data attribute, and now you can see there is a rectangular brace. And this means it's a collection of multiple JSON objects. See, as I told you, this is a JSON response. Starts with the curly brace and ends with the curly brace. But there is always a possibility that a JSON response can have more than one JSON object. So let's say that, just forget this response for now. Let's just say that you had like this, right? This is called one JSON response or one JSON object because it's just having some attributes and every attribute is having a value. So this is called as a key. So page is a key and it is having a value. Similarly, per page is a key, it's having a value. So this is one JSON object starting and ending with a curly brace. But if you are having a collection of such multiple curly braces like this, right, which are comma separated, then we call this particular object as a JSON array, because a JSON array is a collection of JSON objects and all of them individually are JSON objects, right? And every JSON object is having attribute and a value, so key and a value, right? So let's get back to our example. So here this data is a JSON array which is having multiple JSON objects and every JSON object is having these attributes. And you can see that email, first name, last name, avatar, all these are different attributes of one particular entity being retrieved from the server, right? So every entity is having a unique identification. So here we are having ID as an identifier. Likewise, we are having like 5 to 6 entries being shown here, and every entry is having collection of different data. So that all we can see on this response here, right? So this is the response being retrieved, and along with the response body, this is called the response body, which is in the form of JSON. We can see that we have got some response cookie, right? What is the domain? What is the path? It is having some values. There are some response headers also that, okay, what is the date? what are the content types, what is the transfer encoding, etc., e tag, etc., right? So these are the different values which are there, which comes in the response. Along with that, you can see how much time it took in milliseconds to process the request, what is the size of the response, which is the response body, and what is the status here, right? So this particular 200 OK itself, when you do a mouse over, it will give you an idea. It is a standard response for successful HTTP request. So our request is successful. That is why we have got the response payload with some proper data, right? So we will look into what are these different status codes into our feature slides in this particular video. We are going to look at that in detail. So this is just an example of how to hit a API call and how the API response looks like. I just wanted to give an indication. So we are going to look at details of get call, post call, put, patch, delete, everything in our future session. So don't worry at all. So let's get back into our slide, right? So we have looked at what is base URL, resource, URI, and we have looked at what is safe methods, right? Which do not update or delete a resource on the server are called as safe method. So there is another concept which is called as idempotent methods. So let's say there are some operations which when performed, right, it will give us some output. Again, if you execute the same action again, that particular overall action is not going to have any effect. Now, this particular thing means from a server perspective. So we have to understand that from a server resource state perspective. This is what this particular entire definition means. Method whose action, when repeated again once or multiple time, will produce the same result or from a server resource state perspective. That is a server resource, whatever resource you're trying to get from the server, right? Perspective from the server, right? That particular thing is not going to change. So as we know, get, head, options, and trace. If you do these actions again and again, it is not going to modify anything on the server or going to basically create a new resource on the server. It is going to retrieve the same resource representation, right? It's going to get the resource state from the server again and again. It's not going to create a resource every time, right? But a post call, right? A post call will basically create a resource every time you post on the server with some URL and with some payload body, request payload. Every time you use post, it's going to create a resource on the server. That is why post is not idempotent. Similarly, patch also is not idempotent because patch means partial modification. We are not modifying a complete value of the resource every time when we are trying to request at the server. So when you try to use patch, you sometimes might be modifying only the name, sometimes the address, sometimes the ID. That is why it's not a complete modification like how we are using put. Put is for complete modification. Either you do something or you don't do anything. That is what put means, right? But patch is like partial update. That is why it is not considered to be idempotent because it partially modifies the resource rather than completely modifying the state how put does. So then why put is considered to be idempotent? That question would come into our mind, right? That the reason for that is because this definition. We are just modifying the value of the resource. We are not deleting the resource or creating the resource. Try to get this thing right. Post will just create the resource or create a resource every time when we are trying to use the post call. Put is going to just update the existing resource. The resource is still there. We are not removing the resource or creating the resource again. That is why put is called as an idempotent method, because the resource state basically would just change, but the resource is still the same. We are not creating or having anything deleted from the server, right? Now delete, right? Why do we have delete as an idempotent method? Because once you use delete, what would happen? It will basically remove the resource from the server. Now let's say you use the same action, same endpoint URL again with delete. What would happen? It is not going to have any effect, right? Because it will give you a method, a response like 404 page not found. Why? So it's going to give you this particular reply back 404 not found, because server would not be able to get the resource for whatever URI you're going to give. It's not able to get the resource identified because you've already deleted it. So no matter how many times you keep hitting the same URI, it's going to give you the same response 404 not found because the resource is already deleted at the first action. When you hit the delete at the first time with that URI, already the resource is removed from the server. So no matter the subsequent request, how many times you do, it's going to result in the same action. That is why we say it as an idempotent methods. So I hope this concept is clear to you all, right? So we have seen what is base URI, safe and idempotent methods. Now let's look at the next slide. What are the different useful response status codes we are having, right? Whenever you try to hit anything through Postman, you are able to see that we are getting the status 200 okay. Now, as I showed is an example, 404 page not found when you are trying to do a delete successively, right? So what are the different status codes? Let's have a look at that. 200 okay would come when you try to post something. Let's say action was success and response is having an entity describing status. So in this particular example, if you see, we have got 200 okay. And let's see what happened here. With get, we got a response payload as well. It is also giving us the value of the entity. Example, data, what is there within data? This is a JSON body. Similarly, there is another JSON body. So this is how we get a data with entity in the response. So then that is the time when we are getting the response status as 200 okay. You're going to get 204 no content if there is no response body. Status for success, but this particular body will not be there. There will not be any entity in the response to give back to the user. That is when you will be getting the response code as 204, no content. So action was successful, but the response doesn't have any entity. Then another one is 202 accepted. That means the request has been accepted, but currently it cannot be fulfilled. It has been queued up due to some valid reason. So it has been queued up for some future action. 404 we have already seen, right? What is 201 created? So when you're using post call, you would see 201 created getting as a response code. The reason is because you have got the resource created at the server side. So it has given you an acknowledgement back stating that this particular resource has been created. And this is normally seen in a post call. As you saw in a get call, we get 200 okay. Sometimes you will get a status like 304 not modified. So sometimes in a get call, there would be some conditions we are going to use and we are going to get the resource from the server. But the server just wants to ensure that client doesn't get a feel that the resource has got modified. So it just returns back with the status code saying 304 not modified. That means whatever resource information you had requested, we have given you back. But just to inform you, nothing has been modified from a server at the server from a resource perspective. It's still the same. That is the meaning of 304 not modified. What is 401 unauthorized? This indicates that the authentication is not being correctly provided. So this we will see in our other lectures, but just to show you what this means, this authorization section which you see here, right? So here is where we give authorization. So there are different types of authentication which we are having, like basic authentication, API key, OAuth 1.0, OAuth 2.0. So different services today, be it Twitter, Facebook, Jira, all these use some or the other API authentication. So each one of them have got a different way of authenticating which user is considered to be a valid user, which one is not considered to be a valid user, right? So we'll have a separate session dedicatedly only on that. So if the credentials of the user is not correct, then the server is going to give this 401 unauthorized, indicating that this will not be processed and you are not going to be given whatever you're requesting because you're not a valid user, right? The next one is 400 bad requests. This would basically be in that scenario that whatever request payload you've given. So now that you have understood what a JSON looks like, right? Let's say this JSON had this format. Similarly, you would have a request body as well in case of post action. If instead of having proper value like something passed here, if you don't pass any value here, or let's say instead of total you have passed total 1, so this becomes a malformed JSON where the attribute or the values are not proper, or let's say a comma is missing here, right? So it has to be followed by a comma. If it is not having a comma after every attribute, it's going to be considering it as an invalid request type. So that is what we call it as a malformed JSON, right? So if the malformed syntax is the case of your request not being proper, the server is going to return you back with 400 bad requests saying that it cannot understand your request and it cannot fulfill it. That is why you will get this response. 403 forbidden means server has understood what you're trying to ask, right? It has understood your request. The syntax is fine, but it cannot fulfill it. Even though you provide the authentication and all, it cannot fulfill it. It has refused to fulfill. In that scenario, you're going to get 403 forbidden. Now, this could be due to some valid reason. Maybe the server is not operating at that particular point of time. Maybe the gateway, payment gateway, or some other gateways are down at that point of time. So it's not able to basically fulfill your request. That's why it's given you 403 forbidden. And that status indicates that do not try to attempt this action again. Otherwise, it could lead to some, like unimaginable causes, like what, and anything can happen. It could basically cause your transaction to be repeated, which could be something like debiting the money again. Same transaction could be repeated again. So it just basically indicates the user with this code that do not try to attempt the action again, right? What is 500 internal server error? Now this basically means that server is facing some unexpected condition, and maybe it could be load on the server, or it's basically temporarily down due to some other issue. So for that reason, it's saying that it cannot fulfill the request due to some unexpected condition which has happened at the server side. But 503 is having a slight difference compared to 500. 503 means that service is unavailable. That means there is some maintenance going on at the server side. So for that endpoint URL, it will not be able to reply you back with the proper response. So that is why it is giving you the 503 service unavailable status code, right? So we have seen what is safe, idempotent. We have seen what are the different status codes. Now, the last part which I want to explain you in this particular session, and then we will be done with this session, are what are the different types of parameters what you can see in a endpoint URL. So this was an endpoint URL which we have seen in a previous slide, right? So this was a base URL, and as I told you, this remaining part was the resource part. Now, what is followed after question mark? This particular portion is called as a query parameter. See, the first type of parameter are nothing but query parameters, and they are normally the parameters which are added after the question mark. So if you take an example of a Twitter API, so after this question mark, there is a screen name, what particular screen we are trying to refer to. So that value has been given by the user, right? So this is called as a query parameter, whatever parameters follow the question mark. Now, if you are having multiple parameters like this, then you can use AND condition, and you can say like user name equal to, let's say, Srini. So this is the example of multiple query parameters which is separated by this AND, right? So what is the second parameter type? Second parameters are called as URI or path parameters, and they are normally denoted within curly braces. So if you look at the second example here, this is the another endpoint URL. So this is the base URL till here, till 8080 is the base URL. This remaining part is the resource. So this is nothing but the Jira API. Example of a Jira API. So this part is the resource, which is after 8080, right? So after this, once this particular thing starts, this is the resource part, right? This is the entire resource. But what you see here, this is called as the path parameter or URI parameter. That means within the screens, what exact screen ID do I need to reach out to? So what particular screen ID do I need to reach out to? Similarly, in the case of an employee database, if you're having employees here, then which particular employee ID and what particular information do you want to get, that we can provide it here. But what particular ID we want to retrieve, that we are going to give as a path parameter, right? It is always within the curly braces. Sometimes the way of using it could be different. You may not have the curly braces, you may just have slash screens. This also can be considered as a type of path parameter because you're trying to reach out to the resource by following or giving some path. Like here, slash screens is the path. If you don't have such kind of a document, so it depends on API to API. Some APIs, when the developers develop, right, they do have a feature when they put it in documentation, they also have this kind of a representation for the path parameters. Some other developers, like example Twitter, may not use this kind of a representation. So for them, this particular one would be considered as your URI or path parameter, because you're able to reach the resource just using this path. And what follows after that question mark is nothing but your query parameter. So I hope you have got this understood with these two examples. Now, what are form parameters? So let's go back to Postman. In Postman, if you go to body, there is a section called form data. Just click on this radio button and you can see that we are having key and value. These are nothing but the form parameters, right? So you can basically give it like request type, request type, maybe as one type of the form data, and maybe the value could be like application slash JSON. So this could be one type of a form parameter, right? The content, we can have one more thing. So instead of request type, we can say this actually as a content type, not request type. This could be called as a content type. So, so we'll just call it as a content type. So content type could be like application slash JSON. This is like one type of form parameter. What is request body parameter? So this is required when you're doing post call or a patch call or a put call. Basically, when you want to give some data to be posted to server, like created at the server side or updated at the server side or a partial update in case of patch, then we use request body parameter. So that would come in your body. So that basically is indicated at the raw. So when you select raw, now you can give the JSON. So let's take an example. I'm giving this. If this was your request JSON format, then you're going to give the JSON like this. So this becomes your payload data, right? This becomes a payload data, or it's also called as a request body parameter. And the last one is nothing but the header parameter. So in this particular section, we are going to give your, see, these are the header parameters, a key and a value. So it could be something like whether you want to accept the cookies or not, or the authentication, right? So if you see your authorization, then whether it wants to accept a particular encoding or a language. So there are different filters here. You can just type in something, and if you just scroll down, you can see there are a lot of values which are there. Accept language, right? So these are the different parameters which are there, which you can pass in header. And you can also just pass multiple at a time using bulk edit, right? So we are going to look at all these features, but now we have just given an overview about what are the different types of parameters we are having. So we are having header parameters, we are having the payload body parameters, right? We are having the form parameters like this. So these are the different ways we can have the parameters. Now in this get call, we have this query parameter, right? Page equal to 2. You can also pass this using params. If you can click on it, just you can pass this page equal to 2. Either you can directly write like this, or you can mention like this also, key 1. So it automatically appends at and symbol and key equal to 1. So what we had seen, right, in the slide, the and condition which I had mentioned. So this is how it's going to do that. And username equal to Srini. So these are the examples of the query parameters, right? So we have seen the different types of parameters, and we have also seen in Postman how we can give them the different values. We have seen how a request payload looks like, where to give the request payload. We just have to go to body, we have to click on raw, and we have to give the request payload. And then we can click on send if you are using post, put, patch, or delete, right? Sometimes delete doesn't even require a input body. Delete mostly requires only the endpoint URL. So that we will see in detail with examples in our session, next session, right? So I hope this session was very useful to you all, and you have got all these key takeaways away. The Postman tool installation features, what are safe methods, idempotent methods, what is a resource URL, what is a base URL, what is a resource, and what are the different types of parameters as well. So we have looked across all of them, and also we have looked across different status codes which you can get from Postman in the response. So these are some of the important status codes. There are a lot of them, but these are the some of the frequently ones which is being used by different APIs, right? So in the next lecture, we are going to look into the continuation of our Postman tool testing using different methods for get, post, put, delete, and patch. And in after the couple of sessions, once the Postman part is over, we are going to look at one of the real-time examples, like either we'll use Jira, Twitter, or Facebook, and we will do a complete automation testing, and we'll create a framework from scratch. So that will be a very much useful session for you all, and that we're going to use using Rest Assured. That's all from my side. Thank you so much, guys, and do like and share this video with your friends, and do subscribe to my channel if you haven't done yet. Thank you.